Hey, 10:01, let's rock and roll. Welcome to the Hammerdown Podcast, where we're going to put the pedal to the metal and talk trends, tech, and tunes. My name is Jay Mervis, Senior Sales Director here at Fortinet Healthcare. Welcome to the first episode of Season 2 here at the Hammerdown Roadshow on our podcast series. I'm here with Ben Smith, Chief Information Security Officer at Nuvance Health. Ben, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background at Nuvance.
Well, hold on a second, Jay. You didn't tell me that this was the first episode of season 2. I somehow feel special now, but I probably shouldn't, but I guess I do.
Would you have declined?
No, I would have demanded to go later.
I had to open with a big, great guest, Ben. Come on, man.
Well, why the heck did you pick me? Thank you for the introduction. Yeah. I am the Chief Information Security Officer for Nuvance Health. We're a 7-hospital, 250-ish clinic health system in the northeast of the nation, kind of covering New York and Connecticut, northern New York City suburb region. Prior to here, I was with Multi-Care Health System out in the Pacific Northwest, covering the same type of role. But thanks for having me on. I'm excited. Tunes, tech, and trends. How can you go wrong, man?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's how everybody connects, is through music and industry trends and solving problems. And, we're in the technology business. So happy New Year. Let's hit the first episode and make it happen, man.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
All right. So, Ben, we met through some of our travels and relationship within the business. Appreciate a lot of your thought leadership and some of the conferences and places that we've talked. And you've run a couple successful security programs, still running one. But let's talk about resource constraints as the industry trend today. Yeah. From your perspective, Ben, how are you addressing the resource constraints with the skills shortages and the threat actors getting more sophisticated and the hackers focusing on healthcare?
Yeah, and I think it's beyond skill shortages, right? As you look at resources across, people, funding, actual hardware. Although we're starting to come out of some of the shortages around hardware and that sort of thing. We're actually starting to get servers in. Imagine that, But we take a look at it in a couple of different facets, right? I mean, on the resource side, on the human resourcing side, we're pretty much pulling every different lever that we can, whether it's partnering with our HR teams to, number one, help them understand what we need from a resource, what do we need in skills and experience to bring in and support the security team, and honestly the overarching technical team as well. But it's getting out there and me putting stuff up on my LinkedIn page. It's my deputy doing the same, and kind of crowdsourcing, if you will, the idea that we have these positions out there, and Nuvance is a great organization to work for. On the other hand, it's still tight. I mean, we have what did I see, like security has 1 million open positions or something like that, 1 million more positions than there are people available globally. Yep. The question becomes, especially in my region, why is someone going to come work in information security for Nuvance when they could go down to Raytheon, they could work for, one of the massive companies that, work in, or have space and work in the greater New York City area. I had the same problem in the Pacific Northwest, right? I was fighting with Amazon and Microsoft and all those guys for the same resources. One of the big things that we've done organizationally is actually finally opened up our the states that we can recruit from. Used to, when I landed here in 2019, I could hire in New York, Connecticut, and I think New Jersey, and that was really it, right? I can now pull from 13 states, which is helpful, and we have work from home policies, and that none of that would have ever happened if COVID hadn't hit, right? I mean, especially in healthcare, unless you are a big, either national or large multi-state health system, you're not doing a whole lot of recruiting from states outside of your geographic region. So COVID, for all the bad it did, it has actually helped some organizations like ours kind of open up and do more of that recruiting outside and learn how to work with remote teams and those sorts of things. And
No,
then the other big thing. Oh, go ahead, Jay.
no, and that's awesome, Ben, that you have the opportunity to go and draw from a bigger pool. If I gave you a plug working for you in your security program, I'm sure it's a lot more fun than some other places to work. So, I mean, hey, if I can help you get some people on staff.
All right. Well, thank you, Jay. I'll be looking for all the resumes coming my way now. But yeah, I mean, we try to keep it light in the organization. It's certainly not a bad place to work, I don't think. But one of the other big things that we're doing is we're starting to try to create resource pipelines from the local colleges, excuse me, and really start to invest in those entry level positions. We don't have well, for an entry level position, we no longer have requirements for bachelor's degrees. We're much more skill set oriented. Honestly, I'm trying to do a lot of hiring outside of information security. So give me a background in forensics, give me a background in math, give me a background in education. I've got training I've got to do. So why do I need to hire someone with a deep background in information security to go do my training program? So we're working with the local colleges to bring folks in for that. We've got a very successful internship program. We're about 85 or 90% successful in transitioning our interns into full-time employees post our internship program, which is extremely helpful. And honestly, we've come to the realization organizationally that even if we're bringing these folks in and we're training them up and really getting them in line and helping them understand how security works and all that sort of stuff, then we're most likely only going to be able to afford them for 3 years. That's kind of the plus or minus, whatever you want to call it, sweet spot, if you will, for these folks that we bring in for school. If we can get a good 3 years with them, and then somebody else comes in and offers them a significant more money than I can provide from a comp perspective, that's kind of what we're trying to get to, and keep that pipeline open. Honestly, one of the more fun things that we did was convince our leadership that we're going to keep an extra couple of entry level positions open so that we can keep that pipeline filled holistically. Now, that's not to say it's still not hard to find those folks, but I think we're doing better than many. Certainly not the best, but we at least have a strategy in place and we're moving it forward.
No, and that's awesome, Ben, because the way the world is now, there's more portability and more people willing to take chances or do something different with their career. So it's no longer hey, I got the lunch pail and I'm going to go to work for 50 years and I'm going to retire and get a pension and a cake. So it's good that you had that strategy to have the open rec for people to continue to apply. We talked to many different customers. That's, I love the junior college and getting that pipeline where somebody gets a degree. And, we actually, Troy, who very well, he does some stuff with South Dakota, one of the colleges there in the junior colleges. To build those people out, interns. My son's in college. The internship thing is great because then everybody gets a little trial, gets you some experience. The one thing that I love the healthcare business because we get to impact patient care and the continuum of care without changing bedpans. So I mean, there is a cause, and that's the only thing that, hey, as peers in the business, if you're going to show up every day and do a little bit more, just because you're a good person, that's good. And the recruiting from other places. So those forensic folks, I've got a good friend of mine who he was a big city special crimes unit, and he works for one of the big banks doing internal insider threat, forensic investigations.
Yeah.
So there's people, and he went back to school to go and educate himself. So those folks are out there, and that's
Yeah.
great that you're looking at the opportunity differently to develop your team and staff it and build things out and continue to recruit new people and new blood. We talk about it here. There's new blood all the time helps bring in some new
Oh yeah.
ideas, some energy.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and you mentioned bedpans, for better or for worse. During COVID, we were, it didn't matter whether you were in the IT department or you were clinical. We were doing stuff that we normally didn't do. I don't think any of us had to change bedpans, but that's one of much like you. I've spent most of my career in healthcare, and on the provider side, we have a mission, and I think that's one of the things that has kept me in provider healthcare. It's in at the end of the day, the work that we're doing, whether we're providing direct patient care, securing the organization, keeping servers up and running, changing the garbage bag, really goes back to supporting our patients and providing the best outcomes for them, and having that mission to go to work and make sure that those things are happening, the best outcomes are happening, is extremely important to me.
Yeah, and that's why I do it too, Ben. It's like, hey, if we can go the extra mile for you on the customer side and people in your network, we're going to make a difference.
Yeah.
So it's pretty awesome when we're all driving toward that same goal.
Yeah.
Let's transition over to tech. Without
Sure.
taking anything specific, there's a whole ecosystem and different ways. You've run two major security programs in the country. What are you leveraging from a technology perspective to address the resource constraints, Ben?
A lot of it comes down to automation integration. We're starting to get into some of the AI stuff. We're actually, I know GPT is big in the news right now. We're actually starting to look at how do we use that as a chatbot service internally. So we're doing some of that sort of interesting work. But I'd say probably the biggest thing that we're doing to address resource constraints is around access control and automation of users and access control as people come in, getting the access to the right things. It's been huge. I mean, just in the last 3 months, we've automated a whole number of processes where whether it's you need access to a server, you need to be able to go out to log into one of our third-party websites, those sorts of things. When a ticket comes in, the automation is in place. It sets the access and immediately sends an email back to the requester saying, "Hey, this is done." Actually, when we initially implemented it, it was funny that it went from why is this taking so long to, "Hey, I just got this email and I put the ticket in 2 minutes ago. You can't have this done already. There's no way that it was done in less than 2 minutes." So we actually had to change the verbiage for all those your ticket is complete emails saying you asked for something that is automatically completed via an automated process. It has been complete. Please let us know if you have anything else that you need to support. So it was fun being able to bring that up to the leadership to say every once in a while we're doing something right here and we're making things better. But we've automated what the last report showed. I think 30%, 33% of our IAM process is now automated within the organization. So we're looking for 70 to 80%, but that's I think that's a pretty darn good start.
Well, that's awesome. And
Yeah.
to really crush an SLA when something's been like, how do we fix this? How do we fix this?
Yeah.
That's a huge moment to be able to spend time on stuff that is taking more effort or drives the business more within the security program. So
Yeah. No,
kudos to you and the
no
team.
doubt.
And,
No,
hopefully
thanks.
you get to keep going in with great success stories like that. From our perspective, the Fortinet story, I know you've heard this multiple times, but we leverage the fabric which is our operating system that connects all of our tools internally to consolidate threat intelligence and automate. And a lot of our development, we have over 500 partners now in our ecosystem, so that we, you heard me say this before, we love the back up a Florida truck. It's probably not reasonable. You have, bias and some, financial considerations, and certain things work. And, we do a nice job though,
Excuse
having
me.
500 partners in our ecosystem so that you can satisfy all those automation requirements. And we spend more time with the DevOps folks in that ecosystem to make sure that when you're going and automating all these things, we talk about ServiceNow ticketing, and that used to be like, oh my God, it's going to take so long to deploy ServiceNow. Everybody's adding so many different functionality things in there to continue to automate those things. So it's exciting times.
Yeah, no doubt.
Anything else you see from a technology perspective, Ben, on what you're leveraging to go deliver on that?
Yeah, I think you're talking about the Fortinet fabric and integration and whatnot. Obviously we're a Fortinet customer, and we utilize those integrations. Feeding data back into our SIM, feeding it into our SOAR to automate some of those processes as well. I won't say that I'm not going to stand here and say that our SOAR process is fully automated, right? I mean, that was the original panacea when everybody talked about, buy a SOAR, everything can get automated. You can stop attacks momentarily. I don't think that we've ever reached that panacea, but we've gotten to a point where we can at least, create that workflow that an analyst can say, okay, yep, that's a true positive issue, and can go click the button, and that automation can happen once we have some eyes on it. Those are sorts of things that again, automation helps save time, save cycles, and point your folks at the right at the right things that they need to be working on. I think like most, we have a managed services partner. I won't call them a true MSSP, but we kind of work in more of almost a staff aug sort of situation where their team and my team are working hand in hand. Their team actually has access to our internal network and can make changes and do that because we've built that trust relationship. And I think that's been huge for our ability to really drive down how long it takes us to review events, stop actions from happening, and clean them up. I think our last metrics run, we were at under 60 seconds for visibility to an incident happening, about 7 minutes to get it confirmed and stopped, and then it was probably 45 minutes to 50, somewhere between 45 and 50 minutes for us to actually get it the device cleaned up and back to original state. So I mean, we're doing a lot of really great work in that space with the tools and the people that we have, and while the tooling is great, the folks I have on my team are second to none. I wouldn't go into battle with another group, that's for sure.
Well, and that's awesome. And I always joke about SOAR as like the Kobe Bryant of all the security tools. It's 1% better every day, and then you have a quantum leap. But it's not like anybody just washes their hands and says we're totally done. SOAR is it's a journey because the attackers keep getting more sophisticated. But since you're leveraging that, at least you have a bunch of great metrics on remediating things. Thanks for sharing that. That's great. The MSSP thing, we see many customers going to like a full managed on a component, co-managed.
Yeah.
Staff aug like you're talking about, because it's not one size fits all. Everybody picks a different domain. It's not like we just go and say, we're going to just automate all of our security program. Not going to work. No. If you're accountable to it, you got to have visibility. You got to, you're working through some things. But yeah, that's fantastic that you're having that success, man.
And I will say I've fired a lot of MSSPs. I don't like the true MSSP model. I know there's some out there that do, and it has worked for them. But I've always found that you need to have some internal folks that are that are paid by the organization and they're full-time employees of the organization that care about the work that they're doing for the organization that they work for, and are that are going to hop on an issue as soon as it hits and not let 2 days after the problem actually started in your network.
Yeah, I mean, when our SLA says we're supposed to notify you, that stuff doesn't cut it. No, and that's good though. I remember when I was younger, people would say, "Oh, we fired some clients," or hey, sometimes it's healthy to evaluate and move on. So that's cool that you found some people that are doing good work for you, because there is a skills gap, and automating. We provide our charters to provide better patient care. So, having more tools and having more IT people, that's really not in the charter. So if we go and figure out how to do that within the framework we're given, I commend you, Ben. You guys do a great job over there doing that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, information security is not a core competency in healthcare, nor should it be, right? But we need to make sure that we're doing our best to protect our patients, and giving our clinicians and those that are patient facing the best tools possible to protect them.
No, and that's awesome. So let's transition over to my favorite part of the show. It's like corporate Christmas, the tunes. We ran into each other in Scottsdale. I said, "Hey, you want to be on the show?" You're like, "Yes, only if I could take." Who's the band, Ben?
Led Zeppelin, my man.
Oh,
I'm an old soul.
I'm an old soul too. Led Zeppelin. I'm going to go through some metrics and then I'm going to give you the floor. 8 studio albums, 4 live albums, highly influential, innovative. If you talk to any major hair band, grunge band, oh yeah, Led Zeppelin, either from a drumming perspective, sound, singing, how they introed songs, like some amazing stuff with Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Ben, why do you like Led Zeppelin?
I like Led Zeppelin because my dad loved Led Zeppelin. We still have all the originals, original pressings of those original albums, and when I was young, we used to listen to it. But my dad was a Doors fan. He was a Zeppelin fan. All those sorts of great bands from back then. My music is eclectic as it comes. Anything from Zeppelin to Eminem to Billy Joel, the Beatles. When they say you're either a Beatles guy or an Elvis guy, I'm definitively a Beatles guy. But yeah, I mean, I kind of go all over the place with my music taste. But yeah, I mean, I remember, as a kid, I'd be out mowing the lawn, with the cassette tape, Walkman, mowing the lawn, singing along to, Ramble On or the Immigrant Song or what have you. And, one of the neighbors would come over and be like, "I can hear you over the mower. If you're going to sing while you're mowing, can you?" And I'm a terrible singer. My brother and sister got all those talents, but yeah, I mean, it was fun growing up, listening to those tunes, and even I'm born in the '80s, early '80s. Grunge was really kicking off when I was starting to pay attention to music, and love Nirvana, love the Red Hot Chili Peppers, all those guys. But yeah, Zeppelin has always had a little place in my heart, that's for sure.
Well, so let's talk about how we tie the tunes back in. I've always liked Led Zeppelin because whatever their sound is, it was so unique. Everything about it is like you could drive faster to it, you can work out to it, you can sing along to it. Maybe we'll do karaoke when we're out at Hymns or Chime or something.
There you go.
Ben, since you're the guest, what's the first song that you tie back into the trend of resource constraints?
Well, I mean, the first one for me is Good Times, Bad Times, right? I mean, we live in a really interesting time in history, right? We've got massive leaps forward in technology. I think we talked about Chat GPT earlier. I think that's going to have ramifications beyond what we can even think about right now. My wife and I have a 13-month-old, and I can't even imagine what it's going to look like for him when he starts school or gets into high school or goes to college, and the tools that he has at his disposal to make life easier for him, just in the invention of something like that. At the same time, we've got a whole lot of consternation, and we have a massive shift in the way people work and the way people think about work. And honestly, I think it's a massive shift that is a long time coming, and quite frankly needed to happen, right?
Sure.
It's unfortunate that it was COVID that got us here, but we as leaders need to make sure that we are providing the best workspaces for our team members, and the best environment for them to learn and grow and succeed, because in the end, if they are succeeding, the organization is succeeding.
Cool. And I agree with you. We can have a whole conversation about privacy, our definition for how young we are versus what my teenage kids think, and then what your son's going to see. Everybody's definition of privacy is going to be different. It's like we could have maybe we'll have a whole session with all the lights off and we're on there like the insiders.
Hey, man, I don't know if I fully believe this anymore, but over the last, if you would have asked me in 2019, 2020, I was of the opinion, and still in some ways am, that by the time my son is old enough to care, he's not going to. I mean, privacy is going to, in some ways, kind of go the way of the dodo bird. I think it's just the way it's going to end up being. There will certainly be some things that are sacred. There's no doubt about it. But generally, you look at how the society has grown and developed, and our need for cheap and free things. Well, the way you offset cheap and free is by using that data that you're collecting to allow for it. So it's going to be interesting to see how things move forward.
Yeah, that's crazy. So I'm going to go fantasy football style and take the next two.
Okay.
I'm going to take communication breakdown.
Okay.
Because communication breakdown, if we don't have enough resources, so the three major components is of a breach, from what our research has been here at Fortinet, resource constraints, misconfigurations in the cloud, and phishing, because people still click on things because they're idiots. And it happens, right? Like you're in the parking lot. Oh yeah, CFO sends you a note that says, "Oh yeah, please update your two-factor authentication with Microsoft." I mean, trust me, I'm an idiot. I've been there. But communication breakdown, good communication, that kind of solves that. When you have partners talking about the resource constraints, communication, developing talent, some of the things that you're doing, and then when the levee breaks, if we're not doing all of this stuff. Automating, developing people, sticking to the security program. I heard a CIO one time say, "We're going to do more than keep the lights on and try to stay out of coloring outside the lines, because when we color outside the lines, we have problems." So when the levee breaks, if we don't have those partnerships in place, we're not going to be successful.
Yeah, I holistically agree.
Next one for you, Ben.
Man, we could go a couple different ways. We talked about privacy a little bit earlier. Going to California, I was just thinking about this. Right,
love that song.
Right, love the song. And California is starting to lead the way on the privacy conversation, at least in the United States. And the question becomes, who else is going to go down that path as deeply as California? And I currently live in Connecticut, but as I mentioned before, the health system spans New York and Connecticut. How close are states like New York and California and others going to get to GDPR GDPR and really start to make privacy a priority in the internet world. And once it starts in California, what they say, starts in California and spreads every place else, right? So I think that's going to be true in some ways on the privacy side in the United States.
I didn't realize that, Ben, but just so everybody knows I'm not in the penalty box, I just took my InfoSec training, and California has not one, but two things in that same tax bracket of GDPR. Now, I can't remember right now what they were, but I know, from what you're saying, and we've seen this before, something happens in California, explodes across the country.
Yeah,
So
no doubt.
Going to California, love, that's one of my, top 5 Zeppelin songs. Let's talk about a couple covers. I've got one, Battle of Evermore, covered by the Love Mongers. Single soundtrack, arguably one of the greatest soundtracks in the history of movies. Battle of Evermore. So I think every day we have this battle against the threat actors, having good partnerships, developing talent. Do you have any? I got another one if you don't have a good cover.
Honestly, for as much as I am a Zeppelin fan, I'm not a big cover guy. I think I've heard Hootie's done some covers, and was it Pearl Jam maybe has done a cover or two, something like that. But yeah, I mean, if you've got covers, man, hit us with them.
I'll take one more. Hootie did on the Encomium, which is another great collaboration CD. Hey, what can I do? Awesome. I mean, Hootie's like the voice of the 90s.
Yeah, he's the voice of the 90s. You are not.
No,
so
I'm definitely the
easy there on the singing. All right.
We're gonna have to sneak off and do karaoke at one of these trade shows, but next time we're out there.
They'll close the bar down. It'll be so bad they will close the bar down.
Done it before, Ben.
Maybe Bill Murray will show up and sing with us.
Maybe.
You ever see those like Bill Murray randomly showing up at karaoke bars and sitting for hours with people and singing? I always enjoy those stories.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think I'd be better off doing the carpool karaoke with my dogs in the car. And
there you go.
Have a good laugh. I mean, I won't get the 30 million like the Chili Peppers or Foo Fighters or anybody Harry Styles, but I mean, that's what we can do. Ben, anything else? I really appreciate you coming on, being the first guest. Happy New Year to you and your crew. Go Bills. I know you're
Bills.
Really excited.
Go Bills.
Potential playoff run here.
Yeah, Miami will be a good one. We'll see what happens after that. I think the Bills, for as great as they've been this year, they've got there's definitely some holes in both the offense and the defense. So they'll hopefully go do another deep run. Maybe we'll actually get to that first ever neutral site AFC Championship game. That'd be a lot of fun.
Ooh, now you're talking. Everybody has something to bicker about. But yeah, so thanks for coming on. Like I said, everybody, thanks for tuning in to the Hammerdown Podcast. My name's Jay Mervis. If you need to find me, either my YouTube channel, LinkedIn, email, Ben, if you need him, I'm his booking agent, so you got to wire me some money to get him on your show. But no, Ben's pretty open. Like he said, he's out on LinkedIn. So if you want to reach out to him on LinkedIn, run into him at trade show. We've had some fun before. My next guest is a very close friend of mine, Pete Fletcher from VMware. They're a senior cloud staff architect. Ben, appreciate you coming on. Thanks, everybody.
Jay, a lot of fun. Thanks, man.